Hello, hello, hello. A very warm welcome to you all. We are absolutely ecstatic. We are excited. We can't wait. We are nervous. We are all having just one of those moments where we have been anticipating this for many, many months, and we just cannot wait for you to see all of Jess and her team's hard work. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ray Lavery. And together with Jess, we run Trans Matters Worldwide and also the London Transgender Meetup Group. And this project has been, oh, I don't think Jess has had a minute's sleep for about 9 months now with this one because it's just been something that is all consuming and rightly so. Before we kind of get into the film, you're all here to see it, and I know that it's been much anticipated by all of you. Believe you me, it's been much anticipated by all of us as well, and all of the people who've helped support this film. I want to start by saying thank you to all of you. Without you, this film would not have been made. So thank you to the Kickstart backers. Thank you to the community supporters. Thank you to those of you who spread the word. Thank you to those of you who got involved in the film. Thank you to those who emailed us and texted us and called us and said, well, I can't maybe be there, but just want to let you know that I'm supporting you. This has been phenomenal. We cannot tell you how you have been the fuel that has kept us all going. The fact that you believed in us and the fact that you have shown up when it matters most. So thank you so much. I also want to say a massive thank you to the crew, the production team, to everybody that's been involved in this. This is a little bit more than a passion project because this is a very big thing that's happening in here. But I also want to say that it is an amazing thing to see that a film like this is being made. Very rarely do the trans community actually get a voice. And usually it is somebody else who knows nothing about us talking about us, and usually in the wrong way. So this is a very exciting scenario where we can actually put forward the truth, because so rarely is the truth actually told. And really, this is the first film that's ever been done of its kind, directly impacting what is happening. This is the policy inside. This is what's happening in the UK. We all know that there's a very large movement against individuality, against trans people, against anybody who is not gender conforming, looks exactly like a Barbie doll and so on. And so this is for all of you because this involves all of you, and the way that things are going, trans people are only a small portion of the people that are being affected by the changes in here. We are affected. It is a big deal, but it also affects millions of other people. And so it's amazing to see so many of you stand up when it really matters, because these rights are your rights as much as they are our rights, you know? So with this, I want to invite you all to just sit back and relax and enjoy. We have a wonderful evening ahead of you. So not only are you going to see part one and part two, but we also have a wonderful, wonderful, some wonderful live music from the amazing Kay Rowan, who we love and who we know is going to do an amazing job. And she always does. And she's very big in my heart and very big in Jess's heart as well. So we can't wait to hear what she has in store for us. And also just to say that at the end of this, there's going to be a Q&A session. We
Yeah.
have got some questions that we are definitely going to ask. This is your opportunity to ask your questions live. Depending on how many hundreds come in, we may not be able to answer them all, but we will do our best to answer as many of the questions that come up, and we will do everything to make sure that your voice is heard and your questions are answered. Okay, so that's kind of the agenda for today. Let me just hand over to Jess. I think I probably spoke way more than she anticipated so far, but anyway, Jess, over to you.
Oh my God, stage fright all of a sudden. No, hi everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been an incredible, incredible project. And the reason it exists is because of all of you, because of the support we've had more than anything. I mean, I drive these films as best as I can, but you guys have been the fuel and the energy, especially over the past few months in particular. I'm so excited to share it with you. I think it's going to be a really fun night. Yeah, like Ray says, we're going to play part one. We'll have about a 15-minute interview where the lovely Kay Rowan is going to play some music, and then we'll play part two. Part one is about 15 minutes in length. Part two is about 50 minutes in length. So there's about a little bit over an hour of content altogether, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. But yeah, I think that's me. I think we're ready to kick off.
excited, Jess? Are you excited?
I'm very excited, yeah.
I'm very excited. I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, if that's the case, then I will play part one and I will see you back here with Kay Rowan in about 15 minutes or so. All right? All right. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you soon.
Okay, need to be careful here.
That's okay.
Um,
I imagine you have a lot of feelings about Wes treating in particular.
yes.
Try to think some nicer way to put this.
You can be as unreserved as you want.
Okay. What would I like to say to Mr. Streeting? Got so many things. I've got so many things I would love to say to Dear Wes. Let me think.
Going back to Glasgow in the rain. You and me upon the canal with cheap champagne. Taking blurry photos, makeup running down your face. Laughing at what fools were that day. Making fun of ourselves, drunk on holiday. And I'm so far away. It's hard to imagine.
This video is brought to you by us. If you like what you see, please consider supporting us by becoming a member of our website. Visit transmatters.co for more information. So I want to talk about the architect of all of this and come to the title of the film we're making here today. I was wondering how you would finish the statement, Dear Wes.
Dear Wes, families all over the UK look to you as Health Secretary to look after their best interests. Families with trans children no different. Why are you failing them so spectacularly?
Dear Wes, my child has been living in her chosen gender for 3 years now. She has not for one moment doubted her decision. She is not gender questioning. She is a beautiful trans girl. Trans adults exist, and therefore so do trans children. To have her in our life is a joyous and beautiful experience, but it is also a very, very difficult experience to go through as a family. To watch your child experience such profound dysphoria that they cry and scream and try to crawl out of their own skin is an experience I would not wish on anyone. And this decision that you and the government are making is making our pain so very much worse. Like any parent, our only desire is to keep our child alive and healthy and hopefully thriving. All we ask for is the right to affirm her unshakable sense of being a girl who wants to grow into a woman. I'm begging you to find the humanity to reverse the ban for my little girl and for thousands like her.
Dear Wes, my name is River, I'm 8 years old and I am a girl. Since I was 3, I've known I was a girl. I'm really lucky because my family loves me and believes me. At school, they told me I couldn't wear the girls' uniform. They told me I could go to the office at lunch and look at it and touch it, but not wear it. It made me feel like I was a joke, like I couldn't be allowed to be myself. I cried all the way home. They act like I don't know myself just because I'm a kid. But I do know, and I know that puberty is coming soon, so it scares me. I know there's medicine that can pause puberty. That will give me time to grow up without worrying about grown-up things. I'm not allowed to have that medicine, even though it's safe and reversible. Why not? Why can't I just have time to be a kid? I want to play Minecraft, go on my go-kart and listen to Epic the Musical. I want to feel safe being me. Please stop hurting kids like me And please stop making us grow up with fear. Thank you.
Dear Wes, I know that, like all those coffins that we've been leaving on your doorstep, you probably won't actually read this and are going to throw this in the garbage. But you shouldn't. You should listen to us because we know what we're going through and you have no idea what it's like to be us. All we want is to live, to be able to access healthcare, to have a chance to just be ourselves without having to worry about the pressures of puberty and society so that we can make decisions for ourselves. And you are actively denying us that. You are actively denying us the right to live as ourselves. These are kids whose lives are in immediate danger because of your actions, because of your cowardly decisions to put your political reputation over the lives of actual children. And that's just despicable. I hope that you can't sleep at night.
I'm tired. I'm so tired of fighting you. The world is big and wide and scary, and you can't understand everyone's experiences, but that doesn't mean you can keep ignoring us and hurting us.
Dear Wes, I'd like to read you something that you wrote for The Mirror back in 2023. You said, "No matter how well I did in school, the pride I felt about my achievements began to be eclipsed by the deep sense of shame about who I was. I was terrified that accepting who I was would only add to the abuse I already suffered in school. After all, I had been hit with homophobic slurs since I was 11. Imagine the carnage if my bullies knew the truth. I find it really disturbing, someone who claims to be a part of the lgbtqia+ community, he doesn't care about other people going through that same trauma. Everything you said here relates to a lesbian's experience, a bisexual person's experience, a trans person's experience. Anyone in the community, to a certain extent, can relate to these things. There's no empathy from you, Wes. You're the health secretary. It's literally your job to look after this stuff. You could stop trans people suffering, but you don't. It's so disappointing. We deserve better.
Dear Wes, why don't you see us as human beings? Why are you able to sacrifice us so easily? Being a gay man, you should know how vulnerable it is to grow up as a queer person. Why is it you're so readily killing us, letting us suffer without any help at all?
Dear Wes, please involve trans children, the parents of trans children, and trans adults who are former trans children into conversations and decisions made about our long-term healthcare. We are entitled to this healthcare. This healthcare predates your tenureship, predates my lifespan, so please just involve people with lived experience before you make any more damning decisions about something that you know nothing about.
I think I'd say, like, dear Wes, listening's not enough. Time to take action. Action for trans health. Action for trans justice and for bodily autonomy and for the right for people to express themselves however they wish.
Dear Wes, everyone needs to be able to access healthcare that they need without discrimination, and this includes trans children. Trans children have the right to bodily autonomy, to healthcare and to non-discrimination, and we don't have this present in the country. So, yeah, there's work to do.
I would say, Dear Wes, please look at the evidence. The harm that you have done can't be undone, but you can help build a better future for these young people. Because at the end of the day, they are just kids, and they're just trying to be themselves. It's making their adolescence harder, and it's making some of them not see a future in themselves.
Dear Wes, I'd like you to close your eyes for a minute. I'd like you to picture a 16-year-old. He's got a blonde buzz cut, he's got rectangular glasses, he's got a granddad jumper that he pulls right the way down his arms and clenches his fingers over, and he is beautiful and he is loved. He loves eating shitty vegetable samosas and reading poetry and going on long walks with his friends where they don't check the route properly and decide that they aren't going to buy a train ticket from Chesham to Berkhamsted. They're going to walk it for 2.5 hours, not realising it includes crossing a motorway roundabout. And they're going to cross the motorway roundabout hand in hand, screaming, and somehow they make it and they get there and they get to this castle ruin and lay down. And they eat these vegetable samosas and they make friendship bracelets. They make one for the person that they love. They make one for the friends that they love. They give the best hugs. They meet everyone. They can't walk into a room without knowing at least 15 people in it. And he's gone. So much of this world is wrong, and that's what took him away, and you are a part of that. Why are you doing this? What are they giving you that makes it worth taking him away from us? What are they giving you that makes it worth taking so many people away from their friends and their loved ones? What is it giving you that means that 2 of my friends can be in front of me, 2 of the people that I love most in the world can be in front of me, and still I will stand at the edge of the canal and struggle to bring myself back from it? That was you. That was all you.
You wanna run before the sky starts to fall. You don't wanna wait, though it might not at all.
Dear Wes, once upon a time, you would have had an idea of the man that you wanted to be when you achieved your ambition of becoming a front bench minister, a cabinet minister. That man that you then saw yourself as being is not, you will know, the man you are today. When you are through this period of your life, when politics casts you out as it casts everybody out eventually, you are going to need to live with the choices that you have made whilst you were in government. And I would urge you to think about the man you once wanted to be and to rediscover those values, because those values are not the values you're exhibiting today.
I have seen once I was the carriage.
I hope you change your mind more than anything, because I wouldn't want to be remembered the way that you're already remembered so far. But that doesn't need to be the history you leave behind, nor should it be the history that you leave on other people.
I as I, and the interface is stable. You is you, I as I, and the interface.
The pressure.
Interface, you is you, I as I, and the interface is stable. You is you.
Amazing.
okay?
That was great.
It wasn't the words I would like to say. It was kind of like, yeah.
It's fine. Start when you're ready.
And we are back. Hi everyone. I am so thrilled to introduce the wonderful Kay Rowan, aka Ghost Girl. She's going to play some songs for you, and in about 15 minutes time we'll be back for part 2. Okay, knock 'em dead.
Hello everybody. I won't talk too long, but I did just want to say that when I first came out, it was Trans Matters like meetup group that was the reason why I found community and found space. I've got a front row seat to some of Jess's brilliance, and I just feel very lucky. So thank you for inviting me to come play. I don't imagine this is going to be any happier than what you've just watched, but I will do my best. When I was brother, I was doomed. Sorrows walked the shadowed room. So leave a candle by the bed to lull the dreams that fill my head. And the first sorrow said to me, love that which never can be free. The second sorrow took my heart and it consumed every part. The third led me with a smile and said it passes in good while. And yet the river water burned, and the world refused to turn. When I was brother, I was doomed. Sorrow stalked the shadowed room. Don't love me yet. So don't love me yet. For you, I'll be a featherless wing, will be. Anything. So don't love me yet. So don't love me yet. So don't linger easy. Just fade like a song. I hope that you found where you belong. You said dying's too easy and living's too I hope that I proved you wrong. So don't burn out your light. So don't burn out your light. Don't linger easy. Just fight for each note. Wish you could hear what I finally wrote. 'Cause we're counting our blessings as we drift off to sleep, and holding you gently whilst you silently weep. So don't burn out your light. So don't burn out your light. So don't burn out. Don't burn out your light. Thank you. I've not got much time because I know we're all desperately waiting for part 2. So I didn't write this one, but I hope you enjoy it. And if you were the restless sea, and I the steadfast stones, and you the waving kelp above, I the bleaching bones. little waves to lap my feet, advance, encroach, and then retreat, advance, surround, and then retreat. Oh, you and I forevermore. And if you were the yellow bloom dancing through the grass, and I some wandering honeybee that lingers ere I'd pass, I'd sip upon your nectar sweet, the pollen grains around my feet, in one eternal moment meet, oh, you and I forevermore. And if you were the last wild leaf on the autumn bough, and I the winsome wanton thief to blow as you blow now, and when you fall, as fall you must, oh, I to be the waiting dust, beyond fear, doubt, pain, or lust, oh, you and I forevermore. Oh, you and I forevermore. Do you want one more?
Yeah, let's do one more.
All right. I will probably back up a little bit. Thank you all for being so wonderful, and I really hope you enjoy part 2. When I first came to town, they called me the roving Joe. Now they changed their tune, they call me Katie Crow. When I first came to town, they bought me drinks aplenty. Oh, now they've changed their tune, they bring me bottles empty. Oh, if I was where I would be, I am not. Oh, if I was where I would be, I cannot. When I first came to town, they called me the roving Joe. Now they changed their tune, they call me Katie Crow. Through the woods I am going, through the brown and the boggy mires, straight down the heart to the heart's desire. Oh, if I was where I would be, I am not. Oh, if I was where I would be, I cannot. You can tear apart my rights and you can break apart my song, but you'll never take the ground on which these 2 feet belong. Oh, I'm not a man in your eyes and I'm not a woman by your hate, but if you've come to tell me who I am, I'm a little bit too late. For if I was where I would be, I am not. Oh, if I was where I would be, I cannot. Oh, if I was where I would be, I am not. If I was where I would be, I cannot. first came to town, they called me the roving Joe.
Beautiful.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you so much. I am so proud of you. I love having you here. I get a live music show every time we do this. It's so cool.
You're so welcome.
Again, just absolutely lost in the music. Thank you so much for that. That was great. Please tell Kay how lovely she is in the chat because she really deserves it.
Bless you.
I am going to play part 2, and then when after that's finished, we'll come back for the Q&A. Okay?
All right. Enjoy.
Thanks all.
It's sort of the first thing people think when they hear that you're a trans kid is like, oh, you won't go on puberty blockers, or, you know, like hormones are gonna change you. Or it's sort of, you kind of have to like be this debate around whether kids should go on hormones, which always comes from people who don't understand the sort of desperation you feel. I feel anyway as a trans kid, you know, knowing you want to be changed, you need to be changed, but not being able to. I feel like I exist somewhere outside of my body, like all the time. It just feels like you can never be comfortable in what you are because you're not right. And I don't really know how I know that. I just do. And it feels like it could have been really easy. It could have been way easier than it is. And I wouldn't have had to be in a body that I don't want to be in. People use the word mutilation a lot for trans surgeries, but it feels to me more like the puberty I was supposed to go through was a kind of mutilation. Like, I didn't ask for this, but it just happened.
This video is brought to you by us. If you like what you see, please consider supporting us by becoming a member of our website. Visit transmatters.co for more information. So I think with you first, Susie, what I'd like to do is a little bit myth busting, if you mind.
Okay, no problem.
I suppose what I want you to understand are these questions coming from someone who knows the answers.
Okay.
But I would like to get them on camera if that's
right,
okay.
okay, that's fine.
Okay. So start with, are puberty blockers safe?
Yes, puberty blockers are safe, reversible, and have been proven to be so.
Amazing. Which covers the next question also. You've seen my questions. That's a joke. I want to, on film, so to speak, get a sort of medical definition of what puberty blockers do and don't do. And I was wondering if you could provide that one for me.
Puberty blockers pause puberty. It's like literally hitting a pause button. It effectively shuts down production of testosterone and estrogen. Everybody has both, and it shuts both down. So it basically takes somebody back into a prepubertal stage. That's all it does. And when that medication is removed, within 3 to 6 months, puberty will resume. That's it. That's all they do. They have been used for decades. The first time they were used on a transgender young person was in 1988 at the Amsterdam clinic by Louis Garon. You know, this is not experimental. And also, from that argument, does that mean we would never ever introduce a new medication for fear that it was experimental and new? I mean, that's a nonsense argument in and of itself anyway.
Trans youth who receive gender-affirming care are also subjected to mutilating surgeries by their doctors. True or false?
That's ridiculous. Oh my God, really? No, that is not true. No.
Do you feel that young people are now identifying as trans because it's trendy?
I have never ever met a single young person, and I have met thousands who have done it because they thought it was trendy. Ever.
Do you feel liberal parents are forcing their kids to transition?
I have never ever come across a family where the narrative has come from the parent forcing the child into a pathway. Not ever. What I do see is families where they're desperately trying to keep their kids alive, where they're desperately trying to keep their kids safe. I have also seen young people who've been rejected by their family, who've been rejected by their parents, and those who are meant to love them unconditionally but clearly don't. And I've seen the damage that causes, and I've seen the heartache, and I've seen, honestly, the huge impact that has on a young person's life, where the person that they should be able to rely on to be their biggest cheerleader, turning their back on them because of something that they cannot change, that is just part of who they are. It kind of makes me reflect on my experience as the mum of a trans young person who started puberty and needed access to this medication, and the lengths that I would go to, that I did go to get it for her, because I recognised if she didn't, then I didn't know what the cost would be.
I want to start by getting an overview of what the ban is, who it's affecting, and where we can go from there, really. So when I say to you, the puberty blocker ban, could you explain that for me? What's going on in this country at the moment?
So I think to understand that, you have to first go back to the Cass review. So Dr. Hilary Cass, she was a paediatrician who was appointed by Kemi Badenoch, the previous government's minister, to do a review into youth gender services within the NHS. Her review, she did speak to some trans people, but she also came from a perspective that we felt was quite medicalising, by which I mean she sort of saw being trans as something that was inherently distressing, that was a kind of medical condition that could be kind of treated. And as part of her report, she argued that puberty blockers should not be routinely prescribed on the NHS. She felt that there wasn't sufficient evidence for that. This was really difficult because clearly a lot of people, had gone to the NHS with the specific intention of accessing healthcare that they felt would make their lives better, and now they were no longer routinely going to be able to do that.
The Cass review itself is a political document. One person leading an investigation into gender healthcare who'd never ever worked in gender healthcare. I don't know any other aspect of medication or medicine or wherever where somebody who led on that investigation, on that review, was somebody who had never actually treated a single person with gender dysphoria, never actually worked with a single young person who was questioning their gender or were adamant that this is who they are. Just that single point in terms of its credibility means that it's totally and utterly off the table in terms of any credibility for me, for anybody else. And then you only need to look at how it's been condemned internationally. WPATH have spoken out about it, EPATH, OzPath. There has been widespread condemnation from the entire trans community about that piece of work, and more evidence is coming to light, including the most recent study, the 400-page review that was done by Germany, Austria and Switzerland, where they come to very different conclusions than the Cass review, but they dealt with clinicians who actually work in this field, not people who actively work against trans people.
I mean, literally days before the Conservative government went into general election mode and that particular parliament was closed down, she issued this ban and she said, actually, I think that all puberty blockers in the UK via private prescription should be banned. And that obviously meant that that was like the final option was cut off for a lot of trans young people who had been using private providers to get that care.
There's been a big pushback in the NHS against gender-affirming care. That pushback, I think, is quite politically motivated. It's not generated by a kind of genuine desire to see positive outcomes for young trans people. It comes from a slightly different place. It comes from a place of believing that transness is a pathology, an illness that is to be cured. Maybe this person is going to have to live their life as trans. Maybe we can't stop it, but we should absolutely, in the way in which we treat young people, seek to dissuade them from transitioning from their sex assigned at birth. So that's where it comes from. And of course, most trans people don't agree. Most trans people know that they will be much happier. They'll live their real lives if they're allowed to transition. And for some trans people, not all trans people, being able to pass in your real gender is very, very important. And when you're a teenager, before you're able to take cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers are the way to preserve the optionality of being able to pass in later life. Although the NHS's provision of healthcare to trans people before the puberty blockers ban was really, really poor, there was at least a theoretical possibility of obtaining puberty blockers. Largely theoretical, to be fair, because it's a bit like having a 10-month waiting list for an abortion. The fact of being able to get puberty blockers on the NHS gave them a reason to believe their son or their daughter that it was a good thing for them to have puberty blockers, and then if they couldn't get them on the NHS, then they would look for private routes. So I think in a sense, really, the sort of signalling effect of banning puberty blockers is probably more consequential than the actual practical effect of banning puberty blockers.
So fast forward, we get a new Labour government. They campaign on a message of change. So probably like you, I thought maybe we'd get some change.
I was hoping.
So the ban initially that the Conservative government introduced was temporary, and then it was made permanent by Wes Streeting, the current Health Secretary. He commissioned a report by an organisation called the Committee on Human Medicines, and they recommended that puberty blockers should be banned because of the lack of safety and efficacy data, in their view. Now, that's clearly one particular opinion, and there are many internationally and within the UK. But I suppose that meant that people were saying that, well, the options now, like a lot of people had been getting prescribed by private providers who would maybe be based in Europe, and then they would be able to send and pick up drugs to do puberty blocking in the UK. That's now no longer possible. It would be illegal to do that. It's in fact criminal, which means that we're kind of in this situation where private prescribers are totally shut down. So if you're a trans young person in that situation, you have no options. You've got nowhere to go.
When the ban was first put into place, what was the thought going through your head? What was the feeling?
If I'm being honest, rather confused. Because from every perspective I can think of, the ban just doesn't make sense. It's not that the medication is unsafe, other countries allow it. It's not that the UK just doesn't like them, because in cis children, for using puberty blockers for any other purpose, perfectly allowed. And it's not really like it's a case of them being abused en masse by people who quote-unquote don't need them, which is a silly idea anyway. Because I think at its peak there's only like 40 or 50 children in the UK who are actually making use of them. I felt like it was just a way to attack a very marginalised group of people, and honestly I felt confused.
I'm going to give you a professional courtesy out here by using the words, in your opinion.
Yes.
In your opinion, what would you say the cause for this ban was then? If it isn't to do all of the things the TERFs claim it is and save the children.
I'm honestly not sure. Part of me wants to say that it is just cultural bullshit imported from America. I feels like it's just an opportunity to politicize something which impacts in reality very few people, but is a pretty easy way of a government saying, hey, look, we just won a general election and we're already doing things. Look at how great we are.
When the ban was first put into place, it made me lose complete faith in Labour. Not like I had a lot of faith in them, but like trans rights is a massive dividing issue that I would have thought Labour would be supportive of, but they're very obviously not. When the puberty blocker ban was renewed, it was especially crushing because one of my friends had recently died who was trans. That felt like no one was looking out for us, no one cared about us. To me, in my life, this massive thing had happened and no one cared. The government didn't care. And it made it very real to me that we are literally dying and no one gives a shit. People say that West Streeting is ignorant, but to me, this is very clearly malevolent. It's really horrible what he's saying.
Especially when it was made permanent. I know that was after West Streeting met with trans children. And I can't imagine having trans kids that I'm pretty sure they were younger, like none of them were over 15, begging at your feet and then being like, I'll do it anyway. It just sort of shows that they don't really care about us at all. Knowing that so many people don't care if trans kids die, that's pretty scary. Everyone cares about our bodies, but only in a way that they can control. Like, they don't care if we're comfortable in them because we don't know ourselves. In quotes. Yeah, I guess it feels a bit like a betrayal.
I want to believe that we'll put enough pressure on Streeting and make him overturn the ban, but in reality, I don't think that Labour cares about us. I don't think that people in government really care about trans kids, and I think we're sort of a minority that can be sacrificed to them.
I wanted to start with sort of why I wanted to interview you specifically. You know, we've been working on this project in one way, shape or form for 4 months or so now. Mm-hmm. And a problem I've run into in terms of proving the efficacy of puberty blockers is data.
Yeah.
The studies aren't being done, aren't published well enough. We're just not evolved in that conversation enough yet. And I think by interviewing people like yourself, people who are successful trans adults who have gone through that process, we can hopefully see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I suppose to start with, what difference did puberty blockers make on your transition, you think?
I mean, it's difficult to equate it to other people's experiences because it's the only thing I've ever known. There's that really cliched line of, you know, puberty blockers saved my life. But for me, the addition of puberty blockers just gave me the opportunity to transition and press pause at the same time. It allowed me to fully start my social transition whilst pressing pause on the kind of innate incoming pressures of my imminent puberty. Yeah.
Puberty blockers are mentioned. Mm-hmm. How long is it for that process before you know about the situation and you're taking them? How long is that gap, you think?
From being first seen at the Tavistock and Portman Clinic to having the referral for being prescribed my puberty blockers was around about 18 to 20 months. I didn't receive them because of ethical dilemmas with my general practitioner. So I didn't actually get my first injection until just after my 16th birthday, I think. Yeah.
What was that year and a half like for you think?
Agony. Oh my God, waiting. You know, I had already kind of gone through finding the linguistics to kind of represent my internal thoughts and feelings. I had gone through family therapy. I had gone through threatened to be sectioned, threatened to be put up for adoption. I had been through physical, verbal, mental abuse. You know, I was poked and prodded and observed more than I've ever been in my life because they were so cautious. And I think that's always one of my kind of biggest hang-ups about puberty blockers is that people think, you know, my mum always phrases it brilliantly. She's like, they're not sweets. From the start of my transition, when I started having those initial conversations at 11, through to my referral to a young person GIC, through to the endocrinology team, you're looking at almost 5 years. Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting there is I want to kind of contrast that with where we are now in terms of the public perception of puberty blockers, because I think it's such a stark contrast between hearing you say those things and the response you see in the public and the media. That must be quite difficult to hear, given your experience.
I think the thing that bothers me so much is people do not understand the experience that they're robbing young trans people of. People do not understand the fact that this medication does not cause permanent changes, it just presses pause. And people don't understand that it's an exceptionally difficult drug to access. It's an exceptionally difficult drug to find a pathway to. And when you're on it, it is monitored so heavily, sometimes to the detriment of the mental health of people who are on it because they're being monitored so frequently. But it has to be like that. It has to go through those hoops. And I wish people understood that they could not be accessed like they're an over-the-counter drug.
We have seen this huge backlash to the proposal to reform the Gender Recognition Act to bring it in line with human rights standards, which means having a system that is an administrative system and not based on a diagnosis. And even though this is the human rights standard that the system should meet, there's been a huge backlash that has only grown. Attitudes towards trans people have worsened in the past few years since 2018. And hate crime has increased, and it's part of a broader stripping of rights in this country. Is part of a broader scapegoating minorities. It's restricting our rights to protest. Is degradation of our economic and social rights. I think the backlash has been so strong that I think is very inconvenient for any politicians to actually make the reforms to the Gender Recognition Act or to provide and make sure that children have access to healthcare. We see this for trans rights and trans healthcare, but also other types of healthcare that are cast as a moral issue, like abortion, for example. So then it's not about the right to healthcare; it's about debate. It's about who is right and who is wrong. And in this case, I think trans people have not been listened to and are not participating in the processes that they should lead.
We are opposed to the ban. And there's a few reasons for that, I think. One is that, as I said, we don't think criminalising is the right approach. We do have concerns about some private prescribers, and ideally we believe in the NHS. We believe that puberty blockers should be free at the point of use. They should be part of a package of holistic supportive care. And we think it should be timely. We think that people shouldn't have to wait more than 6 years, which is the current waiting time to access that. But at the same time, as I said, I don't think we think this ban is going to make anyone safer. For some families, it's going to mean them paying a lot of money to go abroad to access care. We don't think that's right. And obviously for other families, it means that young people will have to stop taking puberty blockers, or if they had intended to take puberty blockers, they're going to be, in some cases, kind of forcibly detransitioned, and we think that's really dangerous. Puberty blockers are regularly used, particularly for precocious puberty, which is when young people go through puberty at an earlier time than many of their peers. Now, I think we have to ask questions about that because, you know, from what I understand, the main issues with precocious puberty is that social element, which it can be understandably very uncomfortable to be going through a puberty process when the rest of your classmates are not. But when you look at it for trans young people, the indication is the same. It's that trans young people don't want to go through a puberty that they haven't chosen because of the social impact it's going to have on them, because it's going to make them feel, you know, both in themselves, they're not going to feel comfortable in their body, but also because, you know, it's not going to allow them to fit in with their classmates in the way they want to. So the fact that the ban specifically targets trans young people, we think is discriminatory in the way it operates.
I think one of the fundamental things that I keep coming back to is that every single person deserves to be able to access healthcare when they need it, as they need it, and they shouldn't have to pay for it. I mean, that's a fundamental right of each and every human being, and that applies to trans people in just the same way. It applies to everybody, regardless of what your characteristics are. You know, the job that I'm doing now, that I started last year, providing healthcare services for trans people of all ages, we shouldn't have to exist. The NHS should be doing this. The NHS should be providing free healthcare, affirmative healthcare that makes trans people feel seen and heard and gives them what they need when they need it without unnecessary barriers. The NHS should be doing it. We shouldn't have to exist.
At the heart of it, right, this issue is saying, we as a government do not think that you should be able to transition. We think that you have to go through what they would describe as a normal puberty. The thing is, there isn't a normal puberty because in society, gender roles are extremely restrictive. I mean, I don't need to tell anyone here that, but they force you into a binary, and then the way you're treated, the opportunities you're given, your whole life in many ways is defined by that route. So it's not neutral. And that's really concerning and should have concerns for everybody because, you know, what's next? In America, they've already gone after abortion and reproductive care. You know, we're seeing similar campaign groups popping up in the UK. So this is also about a much wider fight to restrict autonomy, to make people less able to express themselves, and to reassert quite traditional gender norms onto society. So I think if I'm an ally, I think I'm first asking myself, well, I better do something because they'll come for me next.
So bodily autonomy is really about a person's control over their own life and body. So it's about, you know, the medical treatment that we want to access. It's about whether we want to have a family, how big this family is, how do we want to, you know, space children if we want children. Because human rights are interlinked. If bodily autonomy is restricted, then those rights are not going to be realized. And people are going to suffer from discrimination and lack of ability to really decide what your life is going to look like.
As a trans kid, you don't have any autonomy. It's sort of constantly taken away from you by the media, by doctors, by the Minister, Secretary for Health. It's very hard not having control of your own body, knowing that you could with puberty blockers, with hormones, but not being allowed it because you're young or because they don't like people like you or whatever the reason is. It sort of feels like you're not in control of yourself, your own body, your own experience. People don't understand it, and so they won't help you.
What does that feel like, not being in control?
Well,
it's hard to describe a feeling.
Yeah. I guess it's like you're not treated as a person, and then that means you're not seen as a person. They don't legislate as if you're real. You're just like a number. And then even when you speak to them, think they find it very easy to put you in a box, and that nobody ever seems to reckon with what it's actually like.
For me, the fundamental question here is, whose right is it to choose how somebody lives their life? Why does a newspaper columnist in the Sunday Times know better than a young person or their loving parents or a prescribing doctor? What's their basis for interfering in the life of that person? I don't really get it. To me, the question which is really at stake here is who gets to choose what life you lead, and that must always be you. It can't be anyone else. No one else has a stake in your life. Certainly they don't have the stake in your life that you do.
Amnesty International is concerned about what's happening to bodily autonomy of, women and trans people, especially around the world. We see draconian restrictions that are affecting people's life, like the right to life is at risk, and it's not just the US or here, it's around the world. These trends are really, global, and they're also, really connected to people who want to be in power, so they are, exploited to win elections, essentially. But, we keep campaigning. We hope to be effective. I think that, we need to stick with hope. There's no other choice than keep hoping and keep working. I think at the moment it looks a bit bleak.
You grew up in Cornwall.
Yes, I did.
What was it like to transition at 13 in Cornwall?
It went about as well as you can imagine. It was challenging. I faced, abuse from students and teachers, and I also had lots of fun external input from people who thought that I had made the wrong decision. And still to this day, if ever I go back there, I get things shouted at me in the street. The last time I went back for Christmas, when I was 26, I had a rock thrown at me while I was at a pub. So it kind of stays with you for your whole life.
How have the people around you reacted to your journey? Has it been positive? Has it been negative?
Mostly positive. My parents, hugged me and said they loved me no matter what. But in recent years, as I've started kind of physically transitioning, that's been a lot harder. In those years where I was just kind of, using a different name, and so it didn't feel like it was much of a change, my mum kind of took that time to educate herself and get used to the possibility, but my dad never did, and so that's still quite a sore point. I think my wider family, though, has been a lot more difficult. I have a grandpa who he voted for Trump, so obviously not exactly great there. My grandma, I didn't actually come out to her. She found my Instagram where I had, used my name and my pronouns, and she went, "Oh!" And she used some quite old-fashioned language and said that something along the lines of, no matter what your sexual permutations, you will always be my granddaughter. But I'm really lucky in that I haven't had kind of any outright transphobic reactions.
In my household, it's mostly me and my mum, and she is what I would say is a tough. She lets me live in the house, but over the past 5 years I've been out to her, she hasn't changed. How she refers to me, I'm still a girl in her mind, even though I repeatedly have asked her not to call me that. She's definitely a J.K. Rowling backer, and is very much in the view that transphobia is feminist, even though I tell her all the time that I'm feminist as well, and I don't have those kind of beliefs.
I've spoken to young people who are as young as 12 years old, and the amount of stress that they're talking to me about is not something I would expect from someone that young, and that's very sad to see, but it's just because the adults in their life making their life harder. Peer-to-peer interaction, so bullying between kids does happen, but most of the conversations, especially after big news stories, but I think in general, most of the conversations tend to be how adults in their life are treating it. Whether it be parents, whether it be school. Quite a lot of it is school not accepting either like name changes or gender changes. Despite no statutory guidance coming out, a lot of non-statutory guidance was put out with the Tory government. A lot of that, I think, although it's not necessary for teachers to follow, there are a large group of teachers that took that to heart, and it has just only made the lives of trans kids harder, essentially.
Was there a change in tone and responses that you had received after the ban was made permanent?
Depends on the day. I don't want to say it filters out, because it's not like these people don't get anxious, or like, you know, this big piece of, you know, news breaks and they're anxious for a little bit and then they're not anxious again, because they're still going to be anxious, and you'll still get those questions that you wouldn't have gotten before the ban. There's some evenings where I can talk to no one, either that being we only have one or two people on and someone else has taken their chat, and then there's some where I'm constantly talking to someone, different people throughout the whole evening. It really just depends on the day, and it can be the smallest thing that people worry about, or sadly huge events, especially to trans youth in the world they kind of live in.
I was wondering how you've seen the ban affect the people around you.
It's had a massive effect. I'm like constantly on edge because I'm really afraid that my friends are gonna die. Basically what a day looks like to me is texting everyone that I know, meeting up with everyone, making sure everyone's alive. It's really, really vulnerable for us at the moment.
I was heading to a party with two of my friends from TKDB, and I was just crying on the train. We were walking by the canal. Two of my friends walked ahead of me, and I just stopped and I looked at the canal, and it took so much effort to step away from the edge, because all I could think about was how much more of this is going to happen, how much more of this can we take, how much more can we sit and watch as this just takes more and more of us. And it was that thought that got me away of, I'm not going to let it take me as well, I'm not going to let him take me as well, him being Wes.
If I had a solid support system and a healthcare system, that I wouldn't have to be looking after my friends and I wouldn't have to be really worried for them all the time.
We've been looking at some data recently, and about 55% of 17 to 19-year-olds who have approached their GP for gender care are experiencing like quite severe mental health problems. This compares to only about 1 in 5 who are not trans, which is obviously a really high number, and I think there's a wider mental health crisis across all young people. But clearly, trans young people are at the very forefront of that kind of general attack on young people, which, you know, informs their mental health.
The support we need is obviously healthcare. Like having actual counsellors that are available that aren't terrible and aren't trying to persuade you to not be trans. That's the experience I've heard from everyone on like cams or anything like that. No one wants to hear trans kids. They want to turn them into cis kids. It would be a really important thing for trans kids to be heard.
After all of that happened, the same night we did an emergency occupation outside of West Streeting's constituency office. One of our youngest members at this point was 13. And so it was for him, really, for people his age, that I was afraid, and we were just laying on sort of inflatable air mattress or sleeping bags in front of this office on the street, and there were people walking past us and they were drunk and they were calling us things I didn't want him to hear. So I just lay like across him, on top of him. I put one hand over one of his ears and I was singing lullabies. Hinduism is very queer and very trans, and I have a lot of stories about that. And I was just reciting those and just kept chanting, we're beautiful, we're beautiful, we're divine, as if that's trying to convince him, but also trying to convince myself, and just trying to block out everything that was going on around us because I couldn't let it take him.
I know so many people who almost didn't make it to adulthood, and because of dysphoria, because of transphobic families, and I know that if they'd had access to puberty blockers, life would have been so much better for them. And the fact that this is now not just harder but impossible is absolutely terrifying, because it means there are so many more trans kids who are not going to become adults. It's mostly in that atmosphere, that knowledge that our government is becoming more and more overtly transphobic and our country is becoming less and less safe for people like us.
It's made me not see transition as something possible for me in the next few years. Like, my plan was always, when I move out, then I'm going to pursue that. But now it's very turbulent to me. I don't know what's going to be taken away. I don't know what's going to happen. The future is uncertain.
I want, more so than I've seen elsewhere, for your voices to be put front and center. And putting myself in the perspective of a cis audience member watching this film, I was wondering, what would you want a member of the general public to take away from watching a film like this?
Trans kids are just kids, you know? They should be allowed to just live their lives with equal access to healthcare that cis kids are allowed, because the puberty blocker ban is specifically only for transgender kids and for gender questioning kids. This is healthcare that is being denied to us because of our identities. And I think it's really important to not let the politics distract from the fact that a man with too much power has decided that some kids should be allowed more of a chance at life than other kids. We are just kids. We just want autonomy, we want respect, we want dignity, but most of all, we want to live. There really isn't anything else to it.
I know that the people around me are hurting, and it's completely legitimate. It's not fake, it's not a trend, it's just people in pain, and it really hurts that the government's letting us feel bad and is also saying, no, you don't feel bad at the same time. Like, it's just crushing us.
Trans youth still are youth, they're still kids, we're still scared of things, we still want support, we want guidance, we're learning things by ourselves, and being trans adds another layer of things to learn, and they don't need to make it this difficult. It doesn't need to be like this.
I think, to the trans young people watching this, historically, it's been through organising, it's been through grassroots movement building that we have created change. I'm from a small place called Haringey, which was actually where a lot of the Section 28 pushback, which was resulting from trying to teach about LGBTQ relationships in schools, started. But, you know, it's through those movements that we survived, and in fact, we started to thrive. Communities grew, we have our own spaces, we have our own infrastructure. And yes, times are dark right now, and the government has very much got trans young people, you know, in their sights. But that will change when the media move on, when the far right move on. You know, we'll be in a position to be even stronger to fight back and start winning campaigns for things that affect us, for bodily autonomy and for trans justice.
Light shines brightest in the dark, all that kind of idea that queer resistance, queer rebellion it's never more needed than it is at times of crisis like it is now, and it means that I get to see our community come together in ways that I never dreamed. I never thought we'd have to, but it's incredible to see what we can accomplish, like at the Department of Education or the NHS England, all of those incredible actions. It's incredible to see what we can do when we come together.
If work is going to be done, that work needs to be done by you. And not necessarily in every case, but if there's good I want to see put out into the world, why not put it out myself?
Can I tell a story briefly?
Sure.
So in Hinduism, there's this story about the churning of the Milky Ocean to get the nectar of immortality from it. The gods aren't immortal at this point, and they can't churn this vast ocean alone, and so they have to enlist the demons to help them. And so both of them are churning this ocean together, and they get the nectar of immortality from it, and then there's a fight over who's going to be immortal, the gods or the demons, because there isn't enough to go round, and obviously both of them want it. And so Lord Vishnu sees this and decides that he's going to transform, and he becomes Mohini, who is the most beautiful woman that this world has ever seen. This gorgeous image of divine trans femininity. She comes down to earth and she picks up this nectar of immortality, and she tells the gods and the demons to form two lines. The gods are here and the demons are like side by side. She feeds one spoon to the gods, and she pretends to feed one spoon to the demons, and they're just so entranced by her that they don't even realise that the spoon is coming to their mouth, but they're not being fed. And in this way, the gods reach immortality and the demons don't. Knowing that story, reading that story for the first time, was something that really just changed something inside of me, just this concept of, yes, trans is divine. Transness has existed before any kind of concept of governments and parties and politicians and healthcare secretaries, and it will outlive it because it has existed for so long and it hasn't changed. And if it's something that the gods can be, then so can we. If it can be seen as the most beautiful thing to ever grace this earth, then that's what we are.
We've made our intentions very clear here, in the sense that while the film is being released to a wider audience, it's only really intended for one person in particular, and that's Labour MP Wes Streeting. Dear Wes, as the architect of the UK government's ban on puberty blockers, our intention here was to appeal to your humanity. We wanted you to listen to the transgender youth this ruling throws under the bus, the parents who are struggling for support, and the healthcare professionals who are fighting for their cause. Whether you did or didn't listen is something that I can't control, but I do have one last card up my sleeve. While we've done our absolute best to ensure that we presented a well-informed argument, with the same empathy and love we always do, the finished film is missing one key element, and that's you. The plan is as follows: you pick a time, you pick a date, and myself and a small crew will meet you at a neutral location for an interview that will go live onto our YouTube channel. I'll be firm, but fair with my questioning, giving you the chance to explain your motivations and concerns when it comes to transgender youth. Being live, you can rest assured that the content of the interview will be in no way manipulated. It also gives you the opportunity to answer questions not just from me, but directly from the community itself. Our only stipulation is that this happens sooner rather than later, so we're giving you 60 days to make this happen. That's more than enough time to fit us into your schedule. Despite appearances, we're surprisingly amenable, but we won't accept any cries if I didn't get the memo. Because if I know the transgender community, and at this point I do, they are not going to let that happen. We're laying down the gauntlet in as respectful a manner we could muster. There are no ultimatums here. I'm not the Joker, a role that belongs exclusively to Vera Drew for the record. You need to see this for what it really is, An opportunity to better explain yourself to a community that feels like you failed them. So, that's it. That's the end of the film. What happens next? I leave that entirely in your hands. Mr. Streeting, I believe it's your move. Back. Hi everyone.
Hello, everyone. We hope you enjoyed that. We know that it's a little bit of a difficult watch, and we know that it's very emotional for a lot of you. I promise you, it's emotional for us too. Even though Jess has been watching this film for now months, I still get the text messages from her going, "Oh, and we did this. Oh, and we added this. And oh, we have this idea." And it's amazing to see how this film has built up and what it has become. Because when this was started, we were thinking 25, 30 minutes. And now we have what, an hour and 15 minutes? It's
Yeah.
amazing. And I know a lot of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. That could have been a lot longer, Jeff, couldn't it?
Oh my God, the rough cut for this movie was 75 minutes long. Oh, and that's just for part two, I think. So we would
Yeah.
have had a 90-minute movie had the original plan, like insane. Just
Yeah.
casually go off. And I said this to you the other day at an event. We make the longest short films. Like, like we could make features, but no, we make the longest short films. Astounding.
It is, but they're needed. They are absolutely needed. So, Jess, thank you so much for making it. I also want to say that a new person has popped up on the screen here. Somebody who would always be pretty much in the background behind the cameras, but very much a foundational part of this team. Uh, I'd like it to introduce the wonderful Jenna Romelston. Thank you so much for everything, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me be part of something that's genuinely important. And as much as we say, yes, we've watched this film 1,000 times,
Mm.
every single time it still guts me like a fish. So
I've become somewhat like immune to it to a certain extent, but I had the opportunity to play part one for Kay before we started the event today because I was like, you should see it. And like we just sort of held
where are
each
you?
other. Like,
I was
Let's watch
yes.
part one and then make you sing a song.
That was the thing. I was like, I have to follow that. I was crying on your living room floor.
oh, that was funny.
I think
Yeah.
it set the mood very well because your music was absolutely phenomenal as
Yes.
always. And a personal question. I mean, that last song that you played, did you write that?
No, it's a traditional song called Katie Cruel, although I wrote the last two verses of it for
I
today.
think that
So
has to become our new theme tune.
It's really good.
It's
It is
really
really
good.
good.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. Well done. Well done. Look, for me, this is very emotional. I've been hearing about it all, all the way through. Jess and her team and Jem, these are the makers, right? I did nothing but shove a bit of paper around in the background and very little else, It was really all down to Jess and her team. And I have to say, none of this would have happened. I've said at the beginning, I'll say it again, none of this would have happened without all of you guys backing this, because this was not one that we could just make on an iPhone. This needed
Yeah.
to be professional. It needed a lot of time. We had to make a lot of contacts. We had to do a lot of set building. We had to do a lot of location. That's not something you can do for 10p on an iPhone. And so without you guys, we wouldn't have been able to do that. And I think it's very important, and it's testament to itself. It's very important that this is as perfectionally professional as it is right now, because that is the message. Far too often are we dismissed as not having the ability to frankly do anything, that all we are is an emotional mess that is to be sidelined. And it's so important to show that actually being trans, first of all, is only a very small part of all of our identities. It's not everything. It's just a bit. It's just a bit. It takes over for a certain few years, but then it kind of goes back. And it's to remember that it's just a small part of who an individual is. And everything else about them is still there, has always been there, will always be there. We are all rational people who hold professional jobs, who hold up society. Yes, you do. Don't saw the look on your face there. Okay. Yeah, we get out there and we are contributing as much to the British society. I have to say the British society and then say I am Irish, but I live here. I'm an immigrant. But anyway, contributing to the world, and to be sidelined so easily on a whim. And from from everything that I've seen and from everything that we're doing, and this film is one section, and we are also very heavily involved now on the protest side of things. And I've seen what documentation is being put forward. And it's the same thing as that what you have here, is that absolutely nobody in the political sphere has had any, they've had exposure, but they have decided to ignore all the scientific facts, all the real studies, all the real life experiences, all the people who work in trans healthcare who know what's going on. And they've just gone, well, even though we know that that stuff is all there, we're going to ignore it. And we're going to say, no, because we believe that you don't have the right to any freedom whatsoever, we're going to create a law saying that we are protecting you. Really, really. So there's, don't start me on another rant, right? It's early on, and the Q&A is not about me. I'm asking the questions tonight, not the ranting. But the point being is that all of this stuff that has happened for trans kid has happened because of a lack of education, a lack of knowledge. And anytime somebody is actually educated about the facts, they back away really fast and they go, "Ooh, I didn't realize it was like that. I thought it was what I read in the Daily Mail or the Star. That's what I thought it was. I thought that was real. I thought journalists had integrity." And around this subject, there's very little of that going on. So to me, this is a very important thing, because this is the truth, unfiltered, by trans people, by trans kids, the very people who are being demonized for being themselves. Like, just it beggars belief that this is even a thing, but here we are. So obviously this has been building. There's been a lot of nasty stuff that has come out on the trans side. It's a trend that is there to, we're being used as an excuse to pull all kinds of rights away. But Jess, although it's plainly obvious, and Gemma, I'll ask you this in a second as well, why did you decide that this story needs to be told, and why now?
So the timeline is kind of interesting, I think, to me at least, and maybe to you guys too. We knew we wanted to make a film about trans youth. We knew that was a topic we wanted to approach, and we were thinking about doing it. We were working on other things too. And by the time we'd finally said yes, we were going to do it, it was, and I remember the day exactly, it was December the 9th. And we started pre-interviews with people who were going to be in the film, people like Susie from Anne Health and a few other people. December the 11th, the puberty blocker ban was extended indefinitely. So every interview we had was angry and charged for very clear and obvious reasons. And over the course of a week, we became angry and charged too. It became very apparent, A, the need for the film, and B, the direction the film would take. You know, just living through that week and going through those interviews really led where we are now. And, you know, 6 months later, we're still sort of following that through line, really. That's how I feel about it. I'm still as angry about the whole affair as I was when I, you know, ended up going off and writing that speech. You know, there's a certain amount of fire and need in this project than I don't think we've seen in the films we've made before, at the very least.
Yes, and as in film number five, you know,
Film five, yeah.
film number five, yeah, exactly. And Jem, I mean, obviously, I first met you on film number four. What keeps you up at night? As you were busy holding a door up as Jess was smashing through it with, you know, with me. One of the most fun moments of my life. If you haven't seen that film and you don't know what it's about, do you know what? It's on our YouTube channel. Go watch it. I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell you anymore. You go watch
It's very good.
But Jen, for you now, because obviously that was the beginning of you of working with us on this project. So what about, you know, what does it mean to you? Like, well, why did you decide to be involved in this one?
I mean, I had been aware of Trans Matters Worldwide for a while before I first worked with you and thought that it was really important. And very much came to Trans Matters Worldwide by Kay. And thought it was incredibly important. Jumped at the opportunity to hold a door whilst I didn't know at the time when I said I'd help out that there would be an axe coming through from the other side. But it was still so fun. And Jess and I get on so well as creatives, and we were actually in the middle of planning what will be one of our future films when I got a message from Jess at ridiculous o'clock in the morning saying, I've written this thing. I don't know if it's just me being angry, if I have a place to say this or anything like that. And I, as a creative, I'm put on this planet to tell stories and to tell important stories. And I always want to make important work. And the second I saw what essentially was the first draft of the speech at the end of this film, I went, I don't care what we've just spent months working on. That's on pause. We're going to disrupt the schedule entirely. We have to focus on this. This is incredibly important. I will hold my hands up and say I was relatively ignorant to how it was progressing. I kind of heard rumors and murmurs and kind of shaked it off to people freaking out on the internet rather than it actually being true, and called Jess and went, you what? And immediately, you know, it's some projects you choose, some projects choose you. And I think that this was the universe turning around and saying, "Oi, focus, and use your skills." So I'm indebted to that.
There was definitely, I think there's an element of that for me too. Like I had been to, we filmed a tiny sort of social video with the members of Trans Kids Deserve Better in October, I think, during their Department of Education demonstration. And I came away, I suppose, quite naively being like, oh, like literally the kids will be all right. Like they've got such a good like head on their shoulders. They're doing the right thing. They're so in tune with what's going on and themselves in a way that I don't think I would have been at, you know, 14, 15. I know I wasn't. You know, I think they'll be okay, and you can chart my sort of view on things from that video to where we are now as the rights of trans kids have gone down and down, and you know, I think we've all become quite educated on this matter over the course of 6 months or so. I certainly don't see myself as like the leading voice in this, but I certainly know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, you do need to educate yourself about this
yeah.
because even though you're on a pathway, not much is given to you. You know, it's a little bit of a bit of this and a bit of that, and we don't know, and all this kind of stuff. But the thing is that they do know. Science is very clear on what this is. None of this stuff is new. All of it is used all across the world. Hundreds of thousands, in fact, millions of people, and the stats that you just put in the film, Jess, they're
Yeah.
just the ones relating to children. You forgot about the millions and millions of adults that are on these puberty blockers and have been for 40 years, because this is not, these are not experimental drugs. I mean, that is the first lie told. There's nothing experimental about these, you know? And you need to stand up and tell the truth about this stuff, because it seems politicians are not prepared to do that. They're just prepared to further their own agenda. And so that is obviously a very difficult hill to climb or mountain to climb, to educate them. But believe you me, we are. And I can promise you that all 650 MPs have received 12 letters from Trans Matters Worldwide that tells them the truth. So far, we've only had 9 responses, 8 good, 1 bad. So that's a lot of people that have to take notice that we are being ignored. Don't worry, I'm very stubborn and very direct and very annoying. And there's no way they're not all going to know about this. And so very soon, and I promise you that, there's not one politician out there who can say they didn't know. Not one.
Yeah.
Not one. And if you're choosing to stand against this, even though that you know, then every piece of integrity that you had intact is gone, and you have no place being in office. The purpose of being in office is not to be in control, although that's how it's taken. It's to be in office, to serve the people, to do the will of the people. And that means being a human being who provides human rights. And there's no excuse for taking freedoms away. It is the core of our society. And it's done on ignorance, and it's done under the guise of protection, but there's no mistake that they 100% know that they are not protecting. They know they are doing the opposite. And I just can't understand how a person can say, I am a leader here to do good things, and then they start by doing that. There's no excuse for it. And I don't care about your title. You're a human being too. That's how I'll treat you. And until you have respect for us, you're going to find it very difficult to get respect from me, you know? And I know a lot of people mirror that, yeah, and rightly so. Truth will be heard long and loud, and this film is a huge part of it. So although I've just done what I said I wasn't going to do, I had a rant. For
Slip one
you,
in.
Jess, and actually let's, because I know Jess is going to say it as well, but for you personally, I know you want to be a part of this, but what is your, when you look at this film and look at the contribution that you made and look at what the two of you have done and all the other team that has helped in there, what does this mean to you? How do you feel when you look at it?
I think what it means to me and what I feel when I look at it are slightly different. I think this is not something that I feel I chose to do. This is something that had to be done. This is not me being fanciful and doing wonderful things. This is just, as a human being, this is what you have to do. I will always stand up for the rights of absolutely everybody to be free and taken care of and provided for. And so when I look at what this film means to me, it's not necessarily some giant call that's really impassioned. And I mean, it is that as well, but it is far more straightforward like that. I have to breathe, I have to eat, I had to do this project. That's very much what it feels like to me. And it somewhat confounds me as much as it does you that other people don't see basic human rights for all as eating, drinking, basic human rights for everybody. And I mean, other than that, I'm just immensely proud. You know, there's this amazing community that is behind this film. There's this amazing community supporting, as everybody watching right now is part of that community. There is this incredible love that is filtered into this project, and I'm incredibly proud to be a part of it. Not as proud as my parents are that I am a part of it. My father, who has offered himself up to be everybody's father several times. I don't want to put that upon you guys, so but yeah, I'm very proud, but also it's kind of one of those, oh, I can't be proud to be able to walk when I have functioning legs. You know, it's just what had to be done and what will and always will be done.
I've had like a few moments of that, not just on this project, but on the other films we've made, of like looking around going, someone else must be doing this. Like, surely someone else is gonna like step in and like try and solve this in a kind of creative way. And I'm still waiting, I think, to a certain extent for a rival or anything to step up. Like, it is a unique experience we're doing and taking part in. I'm really proud of the entire team.
Good. And so am I. I'm very proud of everybody, and I'm very proud to be involved in this, even though my actual involvement in this film was very minimal. But just to be a part and to help facilitate it, it's a huge thing. So I'm very proud of all of the films. I'm very proud of what we are doing here. I'm very proud of giving a voice to people who are silenced so readily. And I am very proud, Jess. I'm particularly proud of how brave you are, the fact that you are standing up there in front of a politician, and not just one, because we're going to stand up in front of the wall, but particularly this guy here, and calling him out like that. When you told me about this film, so we were going to do other films, and she goes, hey, we'll get to that,
Yes.
but we're going to do this one now. We're going to do this one now. And then she goes, and by the way, here's what we're going to do. And I was like, you want to do what? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. 100% let's do it. And somebody has actually just asked here, do you think streeting will respond or chicken out?
I am going to answer that question, but I am going to tell a slightly abridged version of how this film started for us. So we were doing pre-interviews from December 9th, and because it being that time of year, we were also attending a number of Christmas parties in and around London. And myself and Ray were at a party for people in the gender healthcare realm. And it was on the way home from that event that I started writing what would become the speech, having had copious amounts of free champagne. Um, and
Nothing to do with it, Jess. You were passionate long before that happened.
that's true. But I remember very hungover the next day, calling you and giving you a version of the speech just over WhatsApp, I think. Just that was the start of what we were doing. And 6 months later, with many, many script versions, we're where we are now. Do I think Wes Streeting will respond or chicken out? So far, he's chickened out. We've had quite a big response on the video of myself at the Rio, asking for him to show up to the in-person premiere. We haven't heard anything yet. I hold a candle in the window in the hope that he will at some point in the future. Um, I don't know. I think he would be. I think having watched part two. I think the conversation will be he'll be damned if he does, he'll be damned if he doesn't. Um, and
I think also the key thing is about everybody. This is going to sound like it's a masked promo ploy, but it's not. The more we share this film, the more we try and make a big deal of it, the more we make it a tidal wave that's difficult to ignore. And I think that's probably the best outcome. That's been my goal as a producer, is not necessarily to have him there in person, because I feel like if I was in his shoes, I would probably chicken out of that one. And I'm a brave person who's usually on the stupidest side of brave. But my hope for this film is that we make enough of a big deal in as many different ways as possible, so that it becomes something that can't be ignored. It becomes it becomes an actual chess piece on the board, and not just a pawn. And I think that everybody in the community banding together and getting creative about, well, I can put the show on here. Why don't we do it here? We now have this amazing, beautiful film. Thank you, Jess. We now have a tool in our belt as a community to put a chess piece on the board and say, stop ignoring us. Because this is a really informative, thoughtful, not overly emotional, though it does break us, piece. This is a very powerful film that is now an asset in our tool belt to get further on that chessboard. So that, for me, has always been my hope, is to become unignorable rather than to sit there and have to deal with the security team of a small individual.
I think the thing that I like about the finished product more than anything is while that speech is certainly attention grabber and something that will draw attention to the project, I think on the whole, part two is a very thorough breakdown of the argument against puberty blockers. And if we're talking giving education and doing all these things and getting the right information out there, having something slightly inflammatory like that speech, maybe subconsciously giving a bit of re-education in the process, like that is a huge win for us and a huge win for the trans youth community too, I think.
Yeah. And someone is asking here, I need to read a little bit more carefully with my glasses. Now, how can this be seen? Well, as Jess has just said, get it out there. So share it, talk about it, put it on your social media, direct message people that are influencers in this
Yeah.
area, get them to see it, send it to journalists, send it to your MP, send it to your GP. I mean, send it to everybody.
And also,
Send it to
I
everybody.
think adding to that, share it and show it to your friends and your family. Share it with, if you want to show it to your colleagues in your office, there is an email address in the chat so that you can just get in contact with us and we can help arrange that. I think, politics and the way that ultimately people are used as chess pieces in politics does reflect the opinion of the people in some way. Or at least if the majority of people become educated and then the majority of people through their education become trans positive, then it becomes much harder for politics and politicians to pass these stupid things that are, clearly in their own self-interest for whatever political house of cards they're playing. But it becomes harder. So it's not that hopeless fight. It's not fighting a giant. It's chipping away. It's chipping away at everybody. So if you just sit and say, I just want to sit there and watch this with my neighbor, go nuts. That is how I think we can make a difference, is one person at a time.
One person. I mean, if everybody here and everybody watching this shares it with just one person and that person shares it with just one person, obviously it becomes exponential very quickly. And when it comes to getting politicians to listen, it's quite simple. Politicians will do exactly and only what they need to do to get back into office. That's it. And if this is not put on the agenda by not just trans people, it's already on our agenda, but by cis allies or for people who maybe you've never met a trans person, but you just understand that this is nonsense. You've got to tell that to your politician. You've got to put it on their list of things to care about. Because if you're not doing it, why would they do it on their own? It's too big a risk to them. They're trying to stay, as they would call it, in power. We've got to change that narrative, and it's films like this and you guys sharing it that makes the difference. And so we can do our bit, but you need to do your bit. And you need to do your bit. We can't do this alone. And it's not that hard to get out your phone and go, watch this, watch this, watch this. It's not that hard. You can all do it. You're not putting your life in jeopardy by doing that. Think of all the lives you are potentially saving by doing that. It is huge. So obviously, Jess, I mean, we talked at the beginning about, so much footage going on the floor of the cutting room. Can I say that? I always wanted to say that floor of that's a thing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, you hear it in movies, it's like my phone number is 555. It's always 555. Anyway, what for you, because what you've done is you've put the bits on camera asking the questions, but you also spent a lot of time with these kids as they were just milling around, having some water, having a coffee or whatever they were having. Like, what have you witnessed in them? What stories are they telling you, or have they said to you that, maybe you didn't put in the film, but really helps to illuminate what it is like for these kids?
The one element that hit the cutting room floor and I think wasn't considered if only because of length more than anything else. The intention was for part two to be a 30-minute movie. It's currently a 50-minute movie. So we were struggling to pare it down to a certain extent. The one thing that I wanted to put in that didn't end up being put in was asking those kids how they experience gender. Like, what is your experience with transness? Can you put that into words? And the answers we got were incredible. And I think we will try and put them out in terms of socials or one way or another. We will try and get those views out because they were wonderful to hear, but just didn't quite fit in the narrative of what we were doing in the end. But hearing and I think it's one of those things that's such a blessing as someone who makes movies like this. Like, I love hearing how anyone experiences gender, but how a group of oppressed kids, experiences this. It's such a wonderful, and privileged viewpoint, I think. We will get those answers out at some point or another, because they were really worth listening to.
Well, yes, and again, it's just that extra bit of a voice, isn't it, to show what this is like, because you can't switch off your emotions to this. It's a huge part of being human is to have empathy and to have compassion and to simply have understanding, because there isn't a single person on the world who hasn't been told that they are less in some degree or another. Everybody has been told that they were wrong for one reason or another. And so it's impossible for anyone to say, well, this doesn't affect me. This has got nothing to do with me. That's never been what's happened to me. If you're saying that, you're lying. You're lying and you don't know yourself. It's like when
The
you want to say something there.
the fabulous K. Rowan unfortunately has a train to make.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave and make it look like I profoundly disagreed with what you.
Exit stage left.
But thank you. It was wonderful to listen to all of that
Thank
and
you for that.
all of you who were involved
Thank
with
you,
it. So
Kay.
Thank you for adding to its wonder. You're
it
fabulous,
was.
Kate. Don't miss your train. It's probably the last one home, right? So yes. Uh, Absolutely. I mean, look, this is it. So another part of this, and I think for me, this is a very huge part, because the next group of people I want to talk about, they do get an opportunity to say something, and that is the adults, the parents of these children. And that story of that lady who was talking about the anguish that her child is going through and how it literally is ripping through the entire family and affecting them all. What 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 is it? What have other people said to you? What are other parents saying? And I know certainly if Susie was on, she'd be telling you 100,000 stories of what the parents are saying, but because you got to see a little bit more of that, and also in that event that you did with all the trans youth, you probably got to see a bit more. So what does it like? What is the physical toll or the emotional toll for those families now the blockers have been taken away?
I think what's kind of strange about this is when we started the project, I didn't really have a frame of reference. And I think in the wake of what's happening with, or what happened with the Supreme Court a few weeks and months ago now, I've seen that ripple effect affect the trans adult community in exactly the same way. Every trans adult in my life has expressed some form of, shock and heartbreak over that moment. And what's been kind of unique and strange about this experience is that is echoed in everything I've heard from trans parents and trans kids themselves. When we started making the film, I didn't think we were going to be, I didn't think trans adults were necessarily in the same boat. And to see the rights for everyone in our community go the same direction has been incredibly disheartening on a professional and political level. But there is what's the right word here? There is a harmony and a community outreach element that has been really incredible to see. And you talk about the sign making we did. We held an event for people to design the posters that were going to be the backdrop for our film, and it was the best day of my life. It was so much fun to have so many sort of creative and talented people to come in and talk about their stories and share in a way that I almost also don't get in the films we make, because being on camera is kind of a different thing than being sort of in a safe space. It was really lovely. There's a there's a big community togetherness that I think moments like this really highlight. And the past 6 months have proven that to me time and time again.
Mm. And rightly so, and that is the point, is to give that space. I mean, even if you look at the comments on the side, people are going, thank you for, giving a voice to those of us who are always silenced. Thank you for giving us space, even though it was rough to watch this film. Thank you. And we know it's rough for you. It's rough for us too. And we have empathy. We have compassion. I promise you, we feel it with you. And there's nothing that you're not going through now that we also haven't gone through, maybe at a different age, maybe not under the age of 18, but certainly this is we know we know exactly what it is like. So there are a couple of questions, and actually there's
Yes.
a few coming in now. I just want to try, because I know we're at 9 o'clock now. But what people are really asking is, how can they see this film in the future? What's going to happen with it?
So the release schedule is as follows. So part one releases on Friday. So probably about 6 o'clock in the evening, that will go live. If you're following us on Instagram and TikTok, you'll be notified. That's probably the best place to
So
to
that's
get
going
that
up
kind
on
of
YouTube.
information. It will go up directly on YouTube. The aim and the thrust of this project was for it to be able to be seen by as many people as possible. So YouTube, for lack of a better word, lack of a better platform, is the way to do that right now. It'll go out for free for everyone. So when it comes to Friday, 6 o'clock, that'll be the time to share part one. Part two comes out on the 27th, a few weeks later. I want to answer a question here. Um, Jess, in a video on Instagram, you said the film is going to be screened in the cinema and hopefully Wes will sit next to me to watch it. Is this still the plan if he responds within 60 days? So the aim is to get Wes to see the films and engage with this as a dialogue. We have kept the speech at the end of part two incredibly hidden for 6 months. It was one of the first things we wrote in the project, but has been a secret ever since. Um, and I think our intention is, if he does come to the cinema screening on the 24th, I think that speech is still going to be hidden from him. I would love an opportunity where I slightly relish the idea of being sat next to him, but I would love the opportunity for him to be experiencing that speech the same way you all have in real time sat next to him. That's the goal. And at which point, then a 60-day period kicks in, and we'd like to sit down and talk to him. I think on an ethical, journalistic, documentarian level, I think it's a kind of a strange thing to make a film called Dear Wes and not at least give him the option for reply. That doesn't feel right to me as a filmmaker. Regardless of what he has to say, I think he has to be able to weigh in on this. I think that's the ethical thing to do. And we're hoping over a 60-day campaign, he'll be able to A, watch the films, and then B, arrange a time to sit down and talk with me about it. That's the goal, and that's going to be the big push going forward. But that's talk for the 27th onwards as part two gets released.
To add to that as well, and to wrap into one of the other questions of how can we all help and share and try and turn this mission into a tidal wave. On the 27th, when when part two is released, what each and every one of us can do is write to our local MP, because they have an obligation to engage with you if you write as to them, whatever age, as one of their constituents. If you write to them to ask them to bring this to the floor, and to try and, you know, encourage them to watch it, them to share it with Wes. I'm sure that we can also, in the meantime, template out something, a few bullet points, so that we can help you with that kind of writing. But we ourselves can't send things to your MPs. But the more MPs and local MPs that get
Yeah.
this, the more of an impact it will have on the House. So come the 27th, that is something that you can put into your calendar to do, so that when we've got that 60-day period, we can then say, listen, for the next 60 days, that's the idea of the project. So please respond.
Yeah. And so I can promise you that there is going to be a template for that. And I can also promise you that every MP will get it as well, because I am not playing by the rules of I only, email my MP. Screw that. I've already been emailing all 650 of them. When I say emailing them, they've been getting letters. And those letters have been signed by people like you. So if you want to have your name put on those letters, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. Go to the transmatters.co/protest and sign up there. I don't care what age you are. This is an opportunity for kids to put their name on that. You have the same rights, and we will not stand by and allow your healthcare to be taken away from you. That is a God-given right, and no way. So you can put your name on there, but if it comes from other sources as well, it's happy, and it's better. And we will give you the templates. You can cut and paste. You can get ChatGPT to rewrite it for you, whatever you want. But it's going to be factual. It's going to be filled with the information that they need to hear, and it's going to be educational. Whether you might like to do an FU in it, that is up to you. We will not be doing that, because we want to have a dialogue with these people. So, but we will make it as simple for you as possible. And that is a big, big thing. So you're asking what you can do to spread the word. There you go. Do that. There's 2 more things for you to do. So somebody is asking here, you mentioned the 24th. Is this a date that you will invite him to watch it with you? People are confused as to what's happening on the 24th, Jess.
Yes. So part two comes out globally for the world on YouTube on the 27th. On the 24th, we will be at the Rio to screen part two for some Kickstarter backers, some friends and family, and also hopefully West Streeting. That's the aim. He has all of that information in his parliamentary email. We've been sort of laser focused on getting this live stream happening, so I haven't had a chance to follow up just yet. But yeah, that's the push. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's it. So we will be there. And if we can string a few more politicians along, some of them are asking, well, what do you want us to do? Come down to London. Come down. Let's talk to you. So some of these people are very far away. I mean, Lancaster, for instance, is one of the MPs, but there are some good people in the government who are trying to help. It's not like everybody is evil. They're not. People are doing their best, but the more we educate them, the more this stops being a nightmare for us all. And so we must do that. So I think there's lovely comments on here. I have to say thank you all so much for staying on to the end and to listening to us all, particularly me with one of my Ray rants. And I have to say thank you all for being here. Jess, Jem, your entire team, all you backers who've helped us, everybody who was a part of the film, everybody who has been sharing this. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We cannot do what we do without you. We need you to stick with us, and we'll help you with lots of ideas to improve your life. And that's what this is all about. We will never stop fighting for you. Never. Never. So, yes, go ahead, Jess, go on.
I mean, I just wanted a moment to thank the crew on this, Gemma and Raphael Sanis, who couldn't make it tonight as well. Just an incredible production team to make this happen. The first 4 films we made were largely, a one-man band of me holding up lights and camera and everything else, and then giving interview questions. And we had a crew for this, and a crew I'm very much looking forward to working again in the future. It's been I think what I like most about the project is it's this collage of lots of different creatives coming together from lots of different disciplines as well, from music to art to film and video. It's a real mishmash of styles and incredibly creative people. I'm very blessed to have been able to work on something like this, and in awe of all of you. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
And thank you to you, Jess, for culminating all of those things and making such an elegant, sophisticated, beautiful film. And also, you know, wrangling us like the cats we are.
I feel like I need to be wrangled more often than you do, but yeah, sure, that's okay.
Team effort.
That's fine.
Shiva.
That's totally fine.
Wonderful.
We,
Well, listen, thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for commenting. This is the bit, you know, sometimes it kind of feels like we're just doing this stuff on our own. So it's really nice to see you all show up and be part of this community, because that helps to give us the fuel to do the next things that we're going to do. And everything that we do is going to get bigger and is going to get better and it's going to get louder, you know. And somebody asked her, are we going to put these in the film festivals? Well, maybe not this one because it's quite specific, but definitely we're looking at that in the future with the whole list of films that Jess has to make.
we have two other films we want to, at the very least, start the conversation of making this year. And both of those will be film festival bound. I think the onus of this was trying to get as many people to see it as possible. So locking that behind a festival exclusivity agreement wasn't the way forward for me. But the next two projects we do at the very least, I think will be festival bound.
I mean, the stuff you're going to be adding to your IMDb profile, you know.
I like the way Jess is focusing on festivals and I'm focusing on Netflix.
Both,
You've got
please.
to do
That would be
both.
great.
You've got to do
That
both.
would be great. Anyway, enough of us rattling on. Thank you again, everybody. Whatever you're doing for the rest of the evening or whenever you're watching this, if you're watching this on playback, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful year. Get out there in the sunshine. Enjoy yourself. Make sure that you look on the positive side of life, because that's where this all comes from. And remember that when you feel bad, come talk to us, come engage with us, come watch this film and see that you are not alone. We're not alone. Take care, everybody, and goodbye.
Bye all.
Cheers.
Bye all.
Bye, everyone. Take it easy.